Hello, this is How To Bob, and I'm going to show you how to clean the EGR valve on a 6.0 liter Ford Power Stroke diesel. The EGR valve is located here just around the oil filter, and you can see it right here. It's two screws on either side. So first thing I'm going to do is unplug the EGR, and it's got a little clip here that just comes off the tab. And then I'm going to use an 8mm socket. It's held in place by two bolts, one on either side. So I just take out my two bolts, one on either side here. And once I get my two bolts removed, I'm going to take a channel lock and gently twist the EGR valve to the side here so that my tabs are just a little bit off. Then I'm going to need a hooked screwdriver, which I made here with the propane torch. You can do that, or you can use a pry bar. I got a mini pry bar here that I'm going to go ahead and use. It seems to fit in there real well, and I'm going to get that underneath the tab and just alternate from one side to the other and kind of work the valve upward. So I just go back and forth from one side of the EGR valve, and eventually it'll pop right up. It's held in place at this point by the two O-rings you can see here. Now you can see this is really dirty, so I'm going to start cleaning out the housing where the EGR sits just using a rag, and you want to be careful that none of the rag gets sucked in or stuck or left in the housing where the EGR is. And you can see this one is wet down in there, and that is a problem, so I will address that problem in the future. But for this video, I'm just going to show you how to clean it and put it back in. I want to get my screwdriver down in there. This should be real dry, it should be real crusty, it should be caked on, but mine is wet, so I have a problem here that I will, like I said, address at a later point. So I'm going to get my vacuum and make sure I get all the debris out. I don't want that sucked back in, going through anything that shouldn't. So now I'm going to go ahead and clean my EGR, and I'm just going to scrape off all the soot, all the diesel soot here, and make sure I get, just kind of scrape off all the loose stuff. Once I get that far, you can see the valve moves, but it's kind of sluggish, so I'm going to hold that open. And once I get that held open, I'm going to use some carburetor cleaner to spray down in there to loosen up some of this. And when you use the carburetor cleaner, you want to hold the EGR valve in the up position, because there is two holes, and I'll show you these holes here. You don't want to get any cleaning solution or any liquid down in there. You can use parts cleaner, brake cleaner, carburetor cleaner, whatever you have handy. It will work to get this EGR valve, all the soot off the EGR valve, to get it clean. So I'm just going to spray, and then I'm going to come back in again, and I'll end up using a brush here. I don't want to get too aggressive with it, but you can see it's coming off fairly easy. Now I can go ahead and take my gasket off, take my O-rings off here. They just slide right off, and I'm going to go ahead, while I've got this off here, and replace both O-rings and the gasket. The O-rings and gasket together were only like $10 at the dealer, so just work the gasket off the end here, and then I can get in there with a brush and start scrubbing around my valves. Make sure I get it good and clean, and then come back in with the carburetor cleaner. Now you can see here and here are the two holes that you don't want to get any liquid in, but you can see my valve moves up and down real well, so I'm going to go ahead and get my new O-rings and gaskets, and inside this package you'll see two O-rings and the high temperature gasket. So I'm going to start out by putting on my high temperature gasket, and it's got little tabs on it, so you got to kind of work it around the O-ring seats here and the valve housing. And once I get it all the way down, I want to push it all the way down, make sure it's seated real well. I'll even take a flat blade screwdriver and push the corners down just to make sure that it's seated real well. And then the next step, I'm going to put my O-rings on. They're both the same size, so no issue where they go. You can just roll them on down. Make sure it's completely in the O-ring channel there. Looks good. So now I can put my other one on. And then I like to go back in with a little dab of petroleum jelly. That just keeps the O-ring from rolling once you slide it in to the housing, so I'll work that around. You don't need a whole lot, and it doesn't do anything other than help the O-ring slide into place. Now all it's left to do is take my Clean EGR and put it back in, push it down a little bit, and then I'm going to alternate tightening. A little bit on one side, a little bit on the other side, and it'll work its way down till it's seated back in the housing. It doesn't have to be super tight. Once I'm done, just take my plug it back in, make sure it's tight, and that's how you clean the EGR on a 6.0 liter Power Stroke.